Did you get the link?
Yep.
And we're live.
All right, cool. I will share it.
Should we get it from Hyderabad account and then you can retweet now?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So that I was trying to pimp one of my projects too. Yeah. There. That's who it is. So just got to do the social media thing, and then I'll be right to go.
Yep.
Hide. Now I can minimize that. Minimize that. Now, okay, cool. All right, so I'm Dave Hall, and today I'll be talking about deploying Drupal. So a bit about myself, because I'm an IT consultant. I do a lot of stuff with open source. I mostly hack on web apps, and I do a fair bit of sysadmin work. And I actually realized on my way here today that I've been programming for about 30 years. So yeah, I enjoy it most days. There's some days I think I should look for a new job. In terms of what I've done with Drupal, I started off with 4.6, started getting serious with 5, with Drupal 6, I deployed 2,086 sites in 52 hours. I didn't sleep much in that 52 hours because I was worried that the whole thing was going to fall over and I'd have to start over, and I didn't know how long it would actually take, but it worked. I've done a few different things with Drupal 7, and in Drupal 8, myself and Dick Olsen, who I now work with, is you need to plan your deployments. Now, the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. This doesn't just apply to Drupal. This doesn't just apply to deployments. This is something that should help guide all of your work. Start off by mapping things out. You need to know what you're working with. So map things out and start planning. Start off with your environments. So know what your environments are going to look like. Like, is everything just going to get pushed onto production? Or are you going to have dev stage and prod? Or are you even going to use blue-green deployments? For those of you who don't know what blue-green deployments are, green is live. You clone the live instance to the offline instance, make your updates, and then switch over which one's live. This is quite useful. You probably don't want to do blue-green deployments if you've got a lot of user-generated content, or else you have less user-generated content than when you started your deployment. But there are ways around that as well. Also, what's your hosting platform going to be? Is it going to be on one of the big 4 players in the Drupal space? Or are you unlucky enough to start deploying on something like HostGator? My advice is find out what the environments look like early and build your plans around those environments. Now, if it is HostGator, it might be time to look for another job or ask to be assigned to another project. Hi, anyone from HostGator. Also, your local environment. What's that going to look like? Are you, like, just out of interest, how many people here actually develop on Windows? like your local dev environment. Okay, now how many of you actually deploy onto Windows servers? I don't see any hands up. Okay, you have a problem there. Your dev environment should, as closely as possible, match the target environment that you're going to be deploying to. Because how many times have you heard it works on my computer from a developer? Now, there are times where developers, somehow think it did work on their computer and it didn't. But also there are a bunch of times where there are differences in environments, and that's where the problems come in. Now, if you are on Windows, I would recommend that on Monday you go back to work and talk to the right people and try to get a setup where you can actually run Linux, or even better, go to your boss and say, this guy Dave from Australia said everyone on the team needs a Mac, and you can be developing on a Mac. Now, most people won't deploy on a Mac server, but the thing is, it's easier to run virtual machines. You don't have such a performance impact of running VirtualBox under on a Mac or Linux, so you do have more flexibility there. And also, if you're running on Linux, you can have things like Docker running as well, which can be really useful for isolating services. So the first thing you need to think about with your deployments is code, because at the end of the day, without code, you don't have a Drupal site. So start off by thinking about your version control system. Now, I think it was it Sanjeev gave a presentation on Git workflow earlier? Yeah. Now that presentation, it was clear that his team has really thought about how they do their Git workflow. And it sounds like they're doing really well with integrating it with their deployment process as well. And there are two key things. You need to have your deployment system closely integrated with your version control system. Now, maybe you always build a tarball and deploy that onto the server, but the code still needs to come out of a version control system in the first place. Structure your code as well. Use Drupal best practices for organising your code and your modules. So if you're patching a module, make sure you include a copy in a patches directory within that module. So if you run a drush DL to update the module, when you do a git status, it will actually show you that the patches directory is missing. And that's enough to make you go, this was patched. And then if you've got a patches.txt file that documents the patches, why it's been applied, what it fixes, where it came from, all of that information. Because if you've got the issue from Drupal.org, the patch may have been applied 3 months ago. There might have been 2 releases since then. The implementation detail in the patch may have changed, may still not have been applied, but it may have been updated, and you can update your patch at the same time. So it's just one of those things that helps you manage your code better. The next thing is content. Now, Drupal is a content management system. You need to be able to manage your content deployment. This is what I normally see as the content deployment solution from a lot of projects. It is the database catapult. You go onto stage, everything's on stage, people are happy with the updated content and everything on stage, then over the wall it goes, and everyone hopes that it works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes you don't find out for a few days. So this is a solution in some cases. It's not an ideal solution in my view, but it is a solution. I prefer a more agile approach. Something that's small, it's lightweight, and can target things. You might want to look at using the deploy module, which actually uses web services for sending content from one environment to another. Disclaimer, along with Dick Olsen, who I work with, we co-maintain, we both maintain the deploy module, UUID, and some other components there. So it is one solution. It does take some setup. Just back on this, how many people here use UUID features for moving content from one environment to the next? Do you use it on a site where people also edit content on production? Okay, I'm not a big fan of the module, but that's the only time you can use it safely. Otherwise, when you revert the features, you actually lose the content on production as well. So I'd recommend that you don't use that module, but if you have to, be careful. Backup migrate is useful in some use cases as well. Configuration. Now, configuration's a really tricky one. Drupal 7, we've got features. Now, I've forgotten the person's name, but I flipped through the slide deck of the guy who gave the features presentation earlier. If you missed that session, I strongly recommend you go read through those slides. There's some really good stuff there on managing features in a site. Now, with Drupal 8 coming, with what we'd really like to do with our code content configuration is have them like Neapolitan ice cream, where here's the code, or in some cases our code looks more like this, and then we've got the configuration, then we've got the content. All three things get nice and separate. Unfortunately, this is how it gets treated within Drupal. Now, in the Drupal 7 world, you've pretty much got configuration depending on code. You have to use features or CTools exportables or exportable entities, but however you end up with everything living in code. Now, that's handy in some ways because it lives in version control and all of those nice things, and you can track the changes. But it still doesn't give you a nice way of managing your configuration. Drupal 8, configuration actually depends on content. Now, people who are familiar with CMI are probably going, hang on a minute, it's meant to separate the two. But, for example, you have a block in Drupal 8. The block placement is configuration, but that depends on the block entity, which is the actual content of the block. Or you may have a view which has a filter that is a taxonomy term. So you actually need that taxonomy term to do filtering. So there's still some coupling there, but the coupling has shifted more from code to content. Another really important thing with your deployments is automate them. Out of interest, how many people are responsible for doing deployments and they spend a whole bunch of time clicking around and running scripts manually? Yeah, the hands go up slowly, but they're there. Now, one of the things is computers don't make mistakes. People do, and I just made one there. With automation, you can write a script, you can test it, you can make sure it works consistently, and then the only mistake that can happen is when the person triggers it. Like they might call it with the wrong argument or something like that, which is, yeah. And the other part of preventing mistakes is having test infrastructure in place as well. Use perhaps use PHP unit, use simple tests if you're doing stuff on Drupal 7. Use the if you're writing modules, I know I'm stuck at this myself, but write tests for your modules that go on Drupal.org. So then when you're making changes, you know if things break or not. And the other thing is use something to actually automate the execution of those tests and the deployments. So make sure that everything works and then push out a build. Now, you can use Jenkins or you can use some other tool. There's several other CI tools around. Jenkins is most widely used in the Drupal world. It still does have some limitations, but it works pretty well. Another really important thing with your deployments is document things. Document your process. It's no good having one like really good sysadmin. He or she knows everything. They can, do deployments, make it all work, and if there's a problem, they just fix it, and everyone loves them. And then, they decide that they're going to move to Chennai or Mumbai, and it's like, see you guys, it's all yours. Now, if you've got stuff documented, then other people can take on that work and develop knowledge around it. So it's really important. Like if you're using GitHub for your project, GitHub has a wiki function, and if you're using a private repo, the wiki is only available to the people who can commit to the repo. Just start putting stuff in there. The other advantage is you'll learn Markdown, which is really handy on GitHub anyway. So, it's just one of those places for documenting things easily. Shove it all in a text file and stick it in the repo if that's what you need to do. The other thing that you should be doing is measuring things. Like how many people here run server monitoring so they know what the performance of the server is like and can go look back at it? How many of you monitor that after a deployment? Or do you only go and look at it when something goes wrong? Cool, okay, that's good. Like I use New Relic on some projects, and I go in there and go, oh wow, nice graphs, and this PD doesn't look quite right. But tools like New Relic or you can see what the average response time on the site is. There's a whole bunch of tools around that will give you data about the performance of the site. You don't just need to use those tools when something goes wrong. Get to understand your site, and after a deployment, have a look. And New Relic allows you to record a deployment against the site, and you can actually see we deployed at 2 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. By 2:30, the average page load time has gone up 100 milliseconds. Now maybe that's because you just blew away all the pages. Now if you're looking at that all the time, you'll know that there's been that consistent behavior, or if it just starts happening today, you've probably got a problem in your deployment. And it may be a slow burn until the site blows up, or it might just be you've got a lot more content, so things take longer. But understanding how your site works and also what's in the deployment can really help you with this stuff. And the other really important thing is communication. Technology cannot solve all your problems for you. People need to talk to each other. Talk about what's going in the deployment. The whole team should know what's going in the next deployment. How high risk is it? Who's doing the deployment? What's the plan if something doesn't work? These should all be things that people are talking about. Now it's great putting details in tickets and all of that, but when you've got 30 comments on a ticket and you're the person doing a deployment, you're not going to read all the 30 comments before going, okay, this is going in the deployment. You just need whoever worked on the ticket, go talk to them, get a summary of them. It's going to be a lot faster and you'll probably get the important bits of information from there. So I think I've probably rushed through this a little bit quicker than I intended to. But yeah, today's just been a bit of a crazy day. My final point I want to make is none of this stuff is set in stone. Think, constantly look at how you're doing this stuff and look at how you can improve it. Like, when you're doing agile development, you're constantly improving the code through iterations, and often teams improve their own processes through iterations as well, through retros and stuff. But include the deployments in your retros. Look at how you can iterate on your deployments. How can you make your deployment scripts run faster? Or how can you make it easier and faster to get code live? One of the projects I'm working on at the moment, 18 months ago, they were lucky to do a release every 2 months. We got them onto shorter and shorter release cycles. We've had really good regular weekly release cycles without any problems. And from next month, we're going to be doing daily releases. So whatever's fully ready by end of business one day, the next morning when the team comes in, 10 o'clock, bang, it's going to go live. Eventually, we'll probably end up like GitHub or Etsy or one of those other projects where they deploy code as soon as it's ready. It goes. Same at Amazon. Like these big companies with big apps with lots of users, they're able to deploy multiple times a day without incident. Like GitHub, your first day on the job, you're deploying code. So, if you get your deployments right, you can be really pushing stuff out quickly. So, thanks everyone for your time. I've really enjoyed my short time here so far. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer questions from up here, or I'll be around for the rest of the day and at the party tonight. So just let me know if you've got any questions and I'll answer them. And we can connect on Twitter as well.
Thank you, Dave. So I'm sure you guys have questions. Come on.
Yep.
From Drupal 7 to 8, we are migrating a multi-site version. What is the best way, or what kind of issues we might be encountering?
Okay, so the question was migrating from Drupal 7 to 8, what problems are you going to... Yeah, with the multi-site, what problems are you going to encounter? The short answer is what? What specific problems will you encounter? I can't tell you off the top of my head. I think that you should start early with just taking one of the sites out of the multi-site and start actually porting that to Drupal 8 and using the migrate module and just, build it, run a migration, see how that works, tweak the migration, and then try importing it again. And just iterate that, and then once you've got one site working well with it, then bring in a couple more, and just keep on iterating through the process until eventually you've still got the live production site working on 7, but you've pretty much got a full end-to-end migration working with Drupal 8. But start off small. Just maybe don't even migrate the whole site in your initial work. Pick 2 or 3 key features, and just iterate slowly and build it up. And that way, you're going to catch a lot more problems when they're small and you can easily identify the problem. You just go, well, we're going to recode it all in Drupal 8 and it's all done. Oh, now we need to bring the old data over. You're going to just have a huge list of problems to solve, whereas if you start with small things, then you can easily work out where it's going wrong.
Have there been any use cases of migrating
Yeah. Ow.
So have there been any use cases of migrating multi-language sites from
I'm not aware of any. Oh, sorry, the question was, are there any examples of migrating multi-site, multilingual sites from 7 to 8? I'm not aware of any, but if you start digging around, you may find someone. Or the alternative is, you can start trying to do it and then work with the D8 multilingual initiative on the problems you're finding, because for the community, it's a lot more important to find these problems now before Drupal 8's released, because it's easier to fix them now. And it's a good opportunity to contribute back to the community.
Oh, no.
Yeah, as you said, feature module can solve a lot of problems. When we had a session for features also. But like what we do, we don't deploy a single feature. Normally, we get a redevelopment of the site. But where we change entire configuration sometimes. We upgrade the Drupal and upgrade everything, and we want everything to be a fresh new launch, right? So how many features I should make, and and you what should be a good process of that?
Okay, so the question was, how do you, well, I hope I've got this right, that how do you figure out how to structure your features, especially when a lot of your work is rebuilds rather than maintenance? Now, I would argue that if you're doing rebuilds all the time, your original build or your previous build had to be pretty bad. And that suggests to me that just doing another rebuild isn't going to solve the fundamental underlying problem there. Like big bang rebuilds as the norm just doesn't feel right to me. But in terms of structuring the features, one per content type, have a base feature with your roles, your base fields, and that type of stuff in it. The theme setting. If you're using the theme module, have a different one for each theme type, and so on. So, but you really need to sit down and look at how the site's going to be developed as well. But just having one great big ball that's your feature, you might as well have a feature deployment catapult like I had earlier with database, because everything is so tightly coupled. Anytime anyone on the team makes a change, you're going to have a merge conflict.
Yeah, I did some analysis and I made my way. I want to share that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a website with lots of one like a 10 like each.
Yeah.
So lots of nodes, and now I need to enter the same node in the new instance, and the user generated content must be one there. So what we do is we create another dev instance, we develop it there, and the day before going live, we sync the node.
Yep.
From here to there, and say our editors will see that we are going to get live tomorrow morning. And the migration module, it has a just integration. So we sync the data, let's go from there to there, and then we go. That is what we found the first way. And yeah, the old instance is not bad, but sometimes client or the stakeholder want to change it drastically. So that makes us keep on redeveloping. And that may be the one exception here, but that is what we do. Is that okay, or there should be a better way?
Look, I think what you've outlined, based on the use case, sounds reasonable. I don't have like 2 or 3 days to dig into your project and tell you if it is the right way. But on the surface, it sounds okay. But to me, one thing that stands out is that the client keeps on coming back, wanting major changes. Big changes means big risk. Try to work with the client and encourage them to make incremental changes to their site. Like small changes, you know, you have a problem, you identify it, you fix it. A big change, you know, there's so many things that can go wrong.
And we don't do regularly, but it's one thing a year, they want to sign up.
Yeah. Well, and also, it's probably better for your business to get them making changes every month. So then, you know, you've got developers employed for 12 months rather than, you know, maybe a month or two doing a rewrite. So, yeah. No worries.
Anyone else?
Yep.
In Agile, we should use continuous integration. What are the tools?
Okay, so the question is, what CI tools should you use? My short answer is whatever works for your team. I would recommend that using Jenkins because it's well known in the Drupal community. There's a bunch of stuff you can rip off to use it. In terms of like what the environment looks like that you run those tests on, maybe it's just a VirtualBox image that you like turn on and run the tests against. There's a range of options there, or maybe you know, you have Docker and you run it on Docker. But having a good test suite is really important as well. And I know that it can be difficult pitching to the client that, you know, there's all this development and a whole chunk of it is writing tests, and they're like, well, just write better code and then you won't need the tests. But, you know, having that test coverage is going to save you a lot of trouble and make it easier to do your CI. And another good thing about using Jenkins is you can use the permission system. And so you can make it that every time someone pushes to a particular branch, a build gets run, and the whole team can view that data as well. And you can run reports against it as well. And you get nice little graphs and all that stuff.
It does a lot of plugins to get in.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, there's a mountain of plugins here. It's a bit like Drupal modules though. Some of them are fantastic and others, yeah, less so. But I've patched a Jenkins plugin and got the patch accepted upstream. So, you know, if you're interested in writing a bit of Java on top of working with PHP, enhancing Jenkins plugins is an easy way to do it. Not that I'm encouraging people to write Java. Cool. Any more questions? Yep.
How easy is it or difficult to get a Drupal 7 by what is the time?
Start now would be my advice. No, like in terms of how long it takes, how long is a piece of string? Like it's really going to depend on the site, how much code you've got to migrate, how much content you've got to migrate, how complex that content is, and all of that stuff. But the starting now, I was actually serious about that. The guy next to you asked about doing it for a multi-site. The answer is pretty much the same for you. Start picking small features from the site and try implementing them in Drupal, and then using Migrate to shift them to shift the content related to that from 7 to 8. And as you start learning, you'll get faster with the migrations. And it means that when Drupal 8 is released, you're ready to hit the ground running rather than starting off with nothing on day one. And also finding issues with the migrations is going to benefit everyone. And it'll benefit you in the long run as well, because you'll have a team of people who, when Drupal 8 is released, already know how to do migrations. No, 7 to 8 was just done using Update DB. Well, in theory, it was just running Update DB. Slight simplification there. Drupal 8 is just porting your code and then running the migrate module to actually transfer the content from one site to the other.
The use of Symfony in Drupal 8.
Yep.
So is it a good thing to start Symfony, allowing us to understand how Symfony works, and then get into what part of the Drupal internals is actually using? What would be the right way to approach the understanding the internals of? Okay,
so Larry gave his talk yesterday, but I'm going to give a bit of the Larry answer. If you want to get off the Drupal island, then start messing around with Symfony. Maybe mess around with Silence, which is a microframe on top of Symfony. But it's useful to mess around with it and understand the framework. But also Drupal's implementation, like Drupal's use of Symfony, there are still some Drupalisms in there. Like Drupal has specific ways of doing things because Symfony is a generic component framework for building web applications. Drupal is a content management system for building websites. So Drupal needs to do things particular ways to serve a targeted use case. So yeah, by all means, play around with it. No, it's not MVC. No. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Like there is some stuff with what's been called headless Drupal, where Drupal you use that, and it just uses web services to talk to Drupal. Or deploy is going to use the CouchDB protocol. So you can actually be running Angular with CouchDB as your front end, and then it uses the Couch sync protocol to synchronize the changes back to Drupal.
So if you want MCD, what is designed by them?
So there's a lot of OO code in there that's come from Symfony, but there's still a lot of the aspect-oriented programming that Drupal has had for a long time. Yeah, well, a lot more now is plugins rather than the hooks. But my talk today, I've tried to, like, I know everyone's like Drupal 8, but a lot of what I've tried to present is applicable for either. And it's more the concepts rather than the implementation detail that I think is important.
When do you think Drupal 8 would be ready?
When it's ready. I actually thought that in Amsterdam we may have actually got an RC. That was optimistic. I think that there'll be a big push to get something for LA, but it's not going to be a stable release. I don't think it will be an RC. I think probably still going to be a beta. I think we're looking at towards the end of this year. Now, I know there's a lot of people who want it sooner, but because it's taken so long, I think there's increased pressure to actually ensure that it's a high quality release.
I'm sure everyone here can help,
Yeah, but even if it's just installing Drupal 8 and like finding if you have any problems. or maybe it's doing something with Drupal and then writing a blog post on it, or doing some documentation, even if it's just site building stuff. Like, how do you build a carousel in Drupal? Something simple. Find some things that are actually enjoyable for you to do and are useful for the community as well.
Yeah.
Not everyone has to have, a bunch of commits for Drupal. There's a lot of other ways to help. Go through the issue queue. Find patches that need a manual test. Then go through, test it manually, and put a comment on it. One of the guys from my team went to his first DrupalCon this year. He went to Bogota, and he helped test the patch. He got his first core commit mention. So, you don't have to be sitting there all the time hacking on code to help with Drupal. At the same time, if you want to be hacking on Drupal, go ahead. You'll help get it out sooner. Yep. The question was my thoughts on NoSQL with Drupal. Probably 2 or 3 years ago, everyone thought that using MongoDB with Drupal was the best way to solve a whole bunch of problems. It solves some and then introduces a bunch of others. You can do it, but like with everything with Drupal, understand the use case, measure what you're doing, and make sure that it's making a real difference and actually helping you get to where you want to go, rather than going, this technology looks cool, I'm just going to use it, and then find out that your site would have been 20% faster with MySQL backend because of your data model. So it's all about, you need to understand what you're building. You're back to the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. And that's not just the speed of your site, it's the performance of your team, your personal performance, and so on. All right, well, if that's it with the questions, I'll shut up for a bit. And yeah, thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you so much. We have yeah, fine. Hey, just by the way, we got disconnected.
Yeah, I noticed. Is it? At the end, like, how long through did this connect?
Stuff. Oh, we handled with the.
Okay, cool. All right, no worries. Yeah, we'll also post the slides online and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, the slides aren't much use without words, like, they're more pictures for them.
Yeah, you can say bye-bye and then just click on stop broadcasting.
Yeah, because I was running through this time, so maybe yeah. Okay, that's sheep's gone.
Wait. Come on.